As Guyana continues to grapple with concerns over housing, infrastructure, public services, crime, and corruption, many citizens are asking whether the country's rapid economic growth is translating into meaningful improvements in their daily lives. This week on Sources, one of the opposition's most vocal parliamentarians, Sherod Duncan, joins us to discuss the challenges facing the housing and security sectors, allegations of corruption, conditions in hinterland communities, and the issues he has been raising in Parliament. We also examine divisions within the parliamentary opposition, the challenges confronting opposition parties, and his decision to join forces with APNU during a period of significant political realignment. Welcome to Sources. I'm your host, Svetlana Marshall. This evening, we're talking all things politics. We're talking also about the housing sector and the security sector, challenges that citizens continue to face. And to do so with me, I have Member of Parliament, Sherod Duncan. You know, Mr. Duncan needs no introduction, really. Welcome to Sources.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the invitation. And it's good to be on a widely acclaimed and highly acclaimed program and podcast. And thanks for the hard work that you've been putting in journalism broadly. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Mr. Duncan, what brought you to politics? You know, what influenced you to say, you know what, I want to be a politician. I want to be a policymaker. I want to, you know, have a say more than just voting. You know, you don't want to be on the sidelines.
I thought it was just trying to make a difference right from high school, being part of the prefect body, coming through, is always trying to make a difference in people's lives, trying to be helpful right into City Hall. I thought it would give you more tools to be able to help the citizenry at large, more resources, a bigger megaphone to raise issues publicly. And is that genuine need to help people at whatever level in our country, and people in this country need a lot of help, and you don't have to look too far. So that was my primary motivation at the very base level, just to help people. As a Christian, we are encouraged to speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves. That is the injunction that we have in the Proverbs, in Songs of Solomon as well. And that is all part of it, of just trying to make a difference in people's lives.
You're widely known for being, at least up to the 2025 elections, AFC member, right? But you actually started off, if I'm correct, in PNC. Tell me about those days.
Yes, so very, very young. Where the church I used to go to on Durban Street, First Assembly, we had a colleague, a fellow brother who was interested in politics too, and would commandeer some of us young people in the afternoons, and we would walk down to the PNCR Working Russ office and listen to Laurel Nestor talk about issues and policies and different ones, the McAllisters and so on. And so that was my first taste of politics. Got elected as the Georgetown District Treasurer through that very office. Got a little disoriented and disillusioned somewhere thereafter, stepped back a little bit, and then came back in 2016.
Mm-hmm. Now, you also were the deputy mayor of Georgetown.
Yes.
You know, when you look back that time to now, some of the issues, in fact, all of the issues remain the same. Mm-hmm. You know, now that you have the opportunity to reflect, you know, what could be done differently?
I think you have to have working relationships with the government, the sitting government of the day. And one of the things I think the APNU government excelled at is working with City Hall, not just because it was PNC folks who were managing City Hall, But you have to have a certain level of professionalism in advancing the city forward. I don't think that the current government has ever sought that in a PNC-led city hall. It has been quite the opposite, and I don't think we're going to get the best ever out of City Hall if we continue on that front. I think we have to look to see where there are common grounds. We try to find common grounds in the National Assembly on in terms of the national budget, in terms of issues that come before the various committees. There are going to be divergences, but I think if we're going to advance the city of the future, that we have to do more in terms of the working relationship between parties. I think we have to come away from this gotcha kind of politics that we've been engaged in for the longest while. You have said it, I think, beautifully. If it hasn't served us in the past, I don't think it's going to serve us now and in the future. And I think it was Albert Einstein who said that the definition of madness is trying to do the same thing over and over, and we're expecting different results. And so we have to try some things radically different than we have done in the past, and we have to have the courage to do that. And I think the PPP, being the person who is in government and having the resources at their disposal, I have not yet seen that ability for them to say, come on, let's sit around the table, let's see what we can do together. Politics aside, we have the common interest of the people of this great city of ours at heart. How can we move it forward? I think after 60 years, we should be farther along. You know, when we visit other countries, it is said that we don't visit countries, we visit capitals. We come into Port Georgetown. We don't come in at Tumeri. The signal for it is Port Georgetown. We visit cities, and we deserve a thriving, beautiful city, irregardless of whoever manages it. And we have to move towards that in our actions.
But is there hope that we're moving in that direction? I mean, recently we had a major division over the streets of the city, where government has taken control of more than 50 streets within the city. According to the council, you know, there was no consultation. And now lands are being, in a sense, being taken back.
Yeah. And this is, it is not what is done as it is how it is done. And again, we don't have that genuineness in approach from central government in reaching out to City Hall. I remember when APNU was in government, we had, I think it was yearly conferences with all of the NDCs, RDCs, neighborhood democratic councils, across the spectrum of it. Mayors had their own conferences and so on. And this was all part of building out this whole system of local governance. And I don't think we've ever really and truly seen it at its best. It has never really been given a chance to flourish because, especially this administration, does not like systems to work. And that is the tragedy that we have. While there is political fighting, while the elephants are fighting, the grass is being trampled, and the people of the great city of ours is being left behind. I would say again that I think more strides were made under the APNU AFC administration, wanting to move towards a cleaner city. I think persons took more pride in the city we had in terms of maintaining a cleaner city. And we did not have oil, we did not have the abundance of oil that we have now, and coming on stream soon gas as well. But with the meager resources, because there was political will to work with City Hall and to maintain a clean and tidy city, I think we started moving in that direction, and we seem to have fallen back since then.
We definitely need to
but
work
I think
together
there's still hope, yeah.
as a people. Now, we started off this conversation talking about your political life, and I want to go back there. Now, like I said when we started, you're known mainly for being an AFC Member of Parliament. You're no longer an AFC Member of Parliament. You're now an APNU Member of Parliament. Now, the AFC, after you took a decision to join forces with APNU, cancelled your membership. And some people were happy, some people were upset. You know, why did you leave the AFC?
As is the nature of politics, I would frame it differently. I did not leave the AFC. We had been working for the coalition, with the coalition, for coalition politics which I believe in wholeheartedly, for 5 years. And I think to ask us to do something different, to me was so, I think a 180 on what is in my DNA. That is why I'm hopeful that working together can still move the city forward, that political parties working together in coalition is one of the best, I think, models for moving this country forward, a country that's been fractured for a huge part of its 60-year history. And so I wanted to continue and have continued working in coalition politics while the AFC wanted to go it alone. I believe that in politics, and we know broadly that numbers matter. I was General Secretary of the AFC. I have been traveling the regions. I knew we did not have the kind of energy that is needed to win an election or make a significant dent in the electorate. And so I believe that the best place for us at the time was coalition politics. I believe coalition politics also offered us a lot of energy, a lot of hands, a lot of brains towards providing a robust scrutiny machinery for a growing power in the PPP. I thought it was the best vehicle at the time. I still believe that it is. And so I held on to the belief that coalition politics is the best road forward. And it was announced that we were going to continue backing the coalition. And then I was still in the AFC at that point, and I was subsequently expelled. I saw it via news that I was expelled via the headlines, you know. So that was something else.
You did it for political survival, would you say that?
Huh?
You did it for political survival?
No, I didn't do it for political survival.
It was now to self.
No, I thought it was the best vehicle forward in advancing the interests of the people of this country. I believe it with all my heart that at some point we have to find commonalities among all of the political parties, the PNC, the WPA, FGM, Forward Gather Movement, as it is, and all of the other political parties that make up the that makes up the opposition, and then you have the parliamentary opposition.
Yeah.
We have to find common ground to move forward. And at that time, I believe that the composition of the coalition offered us the best opportunity to do that and to win government, and so to be able to bring the necessary relief to the hurting people of this country. And I still believe that the coalition offers that.
MP Duncan, you left at a time when persons were leaving, major names in APNU were leaving the coalition. We were talking about Amanza Walton Desir, who formed Forward Guyana Movement. We were talking about Mr. Figueroa, German Figueroa, who led what you call the Public Accounts Committee on behalf of the APNU AFC opposition, and many others. They were leaving. You decided, you know what, I'm going to go with APNU. You know, why not join the PPP?
Again,
were you approached?
I think we all approach at different times, in different ways, to become a part of the PPP. And this is long before 2025. Yeah. But PPP has never appealed to me. Intellectually, I think governance-wise, it has never appealed to me. I think there is too much water under the bridge, as we say colloquially. The PPP has done too much, I think, for me personally, to reconcile my political values for what the PPP stands for. I do not see that genuineness in the PPP wanting to advance the cause of each and every Guyanese citizen. And that is a major sticking point. I see a lot of self-interest. I see a small group of persons. I see a small cabal trying to hog all of the resources.
No, forgive me for laughing, but you see the number of people leaving APNU as a small number of people leaving.
No, I was saying, the persons who are managing the PPP as a small cabal of persons who want to hog all of the resources of this country. And the people of this country, I think 6-7 years after First Oil, still not feeling the effects of that. And that is the challenge that I have.
Now, still on this topic, even after the elections, persons left. I reference to Mr. Holder, right, who chaired. He was a chairman of the PNCR. He's now, a member, I think, or a supporter, an endorser of the PPP government. And you have several regional councillors. How is the party now dealing with this? I mean, these people were listed on your list of candidates heading into the 2025 elections. They're now supposedly representing APNU on these councils. What are your thoughts?
I wish them the best, I can switch out so easily. I think part of what is lacking, and I've been hearing this as part of national discussions quite recently, we no longer have a philosophical approach to politics. As I wish my colleagues the best, we have redoubled our efforts. And that is why we've been to almost all of the regions thus far. Just in a few days' time, I'm going to Region 1, we've been to Region 9, we've been to Region 8, 7, and it's all part of rebuilding the process. Look, these are parts of the ebbs and flow of politics. Nobody reigns supreme forever. I mean, the Knicks has just come back after 50-something years. West Indies cricket is not what we know it to be, and all of that. It's part of life. But I have the courage of my convictions, and on this mountain called APNU for the time being is where I am pitching my tent, and I am lending my effort. I still believe it is the best vehicle in terms of moving this country forward. When you look at the manifesto that we invested our time and expertise into, I think it's the best manifesto still, bar none. It is so good they had to steal the idea for the budget theme for 2026. And I still think that a lot of what is said in that manifesto resonates with Guyanese people. We said in that manifesto we wanted to give a free house lot to each and every Guyanese. Why is it that Guyanese can only get 0.0 something of an acre, and you have people like Dreamview who comes and they can get tons of acres of land and disappear with your money, and you never hear from them again, and people right here can get a sizable land for a decent, humane habitation and living, and we got to fix some problem. And so I still believe that the party, the movement, the coalition of which I'm a part is still the best answers, the best answer for Guyanese. Have we fallen on tough time? Yes. But we're going to dust ourselves off, we're going to get up, and we're going to go again. And to me, that is the stuff real politics is made of.
Okay. Now, earlier you spoke about the importance of finding common ground. You spoke about the need to work with government. For example, these local organs need for a better working relationship with the local organizations, local organs, and the government. But you also referenced to political parties working together. Now we have 3 opposition parties in the National Assembly, and there's already division. I mean, yes, by nature they are divided because they're different political parties, but some expect that the political parties on the opposing side would work together. For example, look at the issue of GCOM. The opposition leader recently wrote to Mr. Norton, chairman of the APNU, requesting a meeting to discuss the 3 commissioners. Now, Mr. Norton has said, in all fairness to him, that, hey, the Constitution does not provide for this. It's a permanent commission, and so there's no vacancy that exists. How should the opposition move forward? How do they get over these obstacles? And talking about the political parties.
Well, you have an issue like that, and not only Mr. Norton. I saw also Senior Counsel Ralph Frankrand quite recently said as well that constitutional change is needed. Yeah. Now, that is common ground that we can work on. The Constitution does not allow for the commissioners to be moved. We have to put a pin in that issue. Perhaps the constitutional reform end is something we can pick up on. There's a wide array of issues at GCOM we can work on as well. I was hoping the first common ground we could find is the removal of the chairman of GCOM, who is not serving in the best interest of the people of this country, and then we can pick up on several things that have been penned. Whether it's the Carter Center report, the most recent one, the EU, the European Union, election observer mission report. We have the Commonwealth. Also, I hope that those documents, they're not stuck on a shelf somewhere and are allowed to get cobweb. But there is so much in those recommendations that the combined opposition can find common ground on, just with GCOM alone, in terms of pushing for significant changes at GCOM. I do not see the three commissioners, Trotman, Corbyn, and Alexander, as being anti to our interests. So I don't know why the haste to move them, but I see them as also wanting to see a different GCOM, wanting to see a GCOM where the citizens of this country can be satisfied that the results ultimately that are produced out of GCOM are valid and that they are credible, and we can all be happy with the outcomes at the end of the day. And we don't see that happening.
Now, the disagreement in particular with regards to WIN and APNU, I think it stemmed somewhere around the elections of the chairman and the vice chairpersons for the various regional party. I could be wrong, but then we saw disagreements. Apparently, agreements were made, and then somebody voted for somebody else. And so now in Region 10, we have a situation where we have no chairman, at least one elected after the 2025 elections, and we have no vice chairman in the council. I don't know that it's functioning effectively in the absence of a chairman and vice chairperson, because there is disagreement. And yes, reference could be made with regards to the minister not intervening, the RU not calling the meetings. But really and truly, I think the issue lies, and this is my opinion, you could correct me, with the political parties, the whole majority there in our region.
I think we have to talk some more. And like I said, there are going to be hot button issues we do not agree on, that we could stick a pin in them, and we can talk about other issues of regional development. I believe that, look, in Western Trial, Cherry Jagan has a chapter in that book, in office but not in power. And I think people might come into political life thinking that you might have a right to something without doing the groundwork, without doing the work behind the scenes. I think WIN came in very heavy where it concerns the GCOM commissioners. I think they probably did not understand the terrain as much as they should, because now we're hearing that constitutionally, and it is for the very purpose, the Constitution is set up in the way it is to protect the GCOM commissioners from political interference, to being beholden to any master, basically. So if we can move them willy-nilly and overnight, then we aren't creating a very strong institution, as sensitive as an election commission is. And I think our colleagues in WIN Nationhood Party, who I respect a lot, may even have come in a little hot at the regional level, as against trying to get an understanding of what is, and how could we move forward. Because again, we understood from day one what the results were. You had FGM, you had APNU, and you had the WIN Party, who were going to be instrumental to moving the region forward. And politics operates quite differently. But as I said, we have a lot of issues we can work on, and we have some very, very hardworking, very knowledgeable people in WIN, as I said, who I respect a lot. The WIN MP for Region 10, very, very knowledgeable. Svetlana, I've spoken with her countless times. The new incoming chair for the PAC, knows a lot about the agricultural sector, and so I respect them. But I think we have to dial it back a little bit. We have to meet and we have to talk. And I want to put the onus upon the leader of the opposition, because 10 months in, I don't see, I haven't heard a call for a meeting of the parliamentary opposition. I would love to hear his vision on where he wants to see the parliamentary opposition go. I would love to hear some of the issues he wants to tackle in this first year, we're in the second quarter now, in the third quarter, as we close out this year. I'd love to see that. I know what I'm doing in all of those periods. I know what I'm doing next year, but I'd love to hear that from him. And I think if we have a broad sense of where we're going as an opposition, I think we will have a better handle on a working relationship moving forward. And I think if we engage more often, even informally, there's some of it happening behind the scenes, but if we do more of it, I think as we get to understand each other's motivation, I think it puts us in a better place working nationally and working together as a combined and a very strong opposition.
I saw recently at Parliament when the Committee of Selection met, to appoint the various committees, attempts were made to have at least the two sides came together and say, you know what, we want to nominate MP Manza Walton this year to at least 3 of the committees. That was rejected. But do you see that as a step in the right direction? That they're, the parties now coming to work together to at least have one of the third parties. That's
a fantastic start, and like I said, there is more happening, and perhaps it's to our discredit. It's our shame that we don't highlight more of it. But with MPs and APNU MPs, we were always comparing notes. When I go into the different regions, I reach out to them. They might reach out to me and say, look what's happening here or look what's happening there. So there is that informal working relationship. Could we do better at maybe institutionalizing, forming up some of it? Yes. But there is still, I think, coming out of a hotly contested election, a lot of distrust, and I think we're still in that cooling off period. So, we might need a little time, a couple of weeks more. But I think by the time we get into the new year, I think everybody will have a good sense of who the other person is, and I think you'll see a far better working relationship in the new year. I'm hopeful.
You've been on the ground, like you've said, you've been doing the groundwork, What are you seeing on the ground?
I see hurting people in this country. I see families who are struggling to get by, and I think just seething beneath the surface is a lot of discontent. I think it was Martin Luther King, the great civil rights leader, who talked about the summer of our discontent, and we might be right there. I think people are going along, people are curtsying, people are smiling at the right times and so on, but it's a lot of discontent that is happening. When I got into the hinterland recently, Region 9, about 2 weeks ago, and I saw people wading through water chest high, and I didn't see any government official there for days. It said something. People are angry in this country. I listened to people passing, going, swimming through flooded streets and roads and so on. I listened to what they were saying, and it's not nice at all. I don't think we're seeing the effects of 1.558 trillion for 2026 or all the other trillions in previous years. I think Drida informed me we have spent about $7 trillion since 2020 to now. I don't think people feel that in their daily lives. People are struggling. I saw nurses wading through water to get from point A to B to go to look after the citizens of this country. But I didn't see the politicians of the ruling party. I saw them on dry land sweeping little drains and so on. And you see, there's something about optics and there's something about doing real work. And the people in this country who don't earn parliamentary pensions and parliamentary salaries and ministerial salaries, they're the ones going out there every day and doing the hard work. And so I like to be among them as often as possible because it keeps my feet to the ground. To travel the length of the Letem Trail, 600 miles from Georgetown into Letem, to feel what the ordinary people feel in this country who cannot afford the skyrocketing cost of airline travel now. It is $85,000. I think it might have gone up a little bit recently. $85,000 from Georgetown to Letem. It's $18,500 by road. That is still high by road. But to feel the concerns, to see the roads, you know, at the where the roads are now, the many stops along the way, pushing vehicles out of potholes, loosing down engines for water to drain from them, you know, doing all kinds of things with exhaust pipes and so on. People got it rough in this country, trying to get from point A to point B. And the people in the hinterland, like I've said, depend on critical arteries and access roads. What the roads are for the hinterland is what the waterways are. For other places, for instance, like the Mazaruni, you know, lower, upper, middle Mazaruni, the waterways is their roadways, and the escalating cost of transportation travel because the fuel is going up. Just recently, I stopped in at Guyana. I think this is on one of the Guyana gas stations, and I have been tracking it onto when we had the shortage. Just after that, gasoline price went up by $40. It has gone up by another $20, $28 since then. So fuel cost is escalating. Businessmen who are importing that oil, they aren't shouldering that. They're passing that on. And so people are paying increased costs for transportation. And that's just one area. That's just one area. Food inflation is one of the highest. Government says we have about 3% inflation roughly, but food inflation is about 300%. Just this morning I saw people talking about the cost of vegetables in Border Market, the escalating cost of vegetables right in the heart of the city. I went to Mbamadai late last year. Cooking gas in Mbamadai, Svetlana, is $15,000, wow. $80,000 a bottle. A pound of chicken is $1,000. So when you give $1,000, $100,000 cash grant, on the coast, that's one thing. But in the hinterland, $100,000 is something totally different. And so you have all of these things at play. People are hurting in this country, and we ought to sit down and think how we alleviate their hurt. You know, one of the things I've seen in my lifetime, especially some people who are opulent, if you throw money at a problem, you think it's going to be solved, right? You send your kids off to private school, but you never check the homework. You have no interest in the PTA and so on, and you just hope somehow they do well. And then when they don't, you wonder why. It's the school's fault. But you had a role to play as well. We're throwing money at problems in this country because we have the money to throw, and we're throwing money at some problems 2, 3, 4, 5 times when we could be doing far different and using that extra money to alleviate the suffering of people in this country. And the further out you go, Svetlana, the worse you'll see the suffering of people in this country.
What would be your solution? Oftentimes we hear the opposition complain about all the issues. Government said, you know what, we're investing. We're using that $1.5 billion plus to invest in infrastructure. We have regional hospitals, we have new roads. I mean, yes, the hinterland, we'll definitely talk about that just now, but in the city and along, you know, the coast, you see infrastructural development. It's there. We're seeing it, right? You spoke about food costs. What are your solutions?
Well,
what solution do you offer?
So, Lana, we're spending a lot of money. There's no doubt about that. I mean, we have to approve some of the national budget every single year. But are we getting value for dollars spent? Are we getting sound infrastructure for the investment we are making? Drive Heroes Highway, don't go far. Drive Heroes Highway, drive the access road from Ogle, and you will see deteriorating infrastructure. More money have to be spent towards that. So again, it's value for dollars spent. So
Guyanese not getting value. That's what you're saying.
We are not getting that. We are not getting that. And I think more interventions can be made at the level of what we spend in the marketplace. Government keeps talking about removing this tax and that tax. But again, businesses are not passing that down. I saw only recently, we have allowed this problem to get out of hand. I saw just recently the GCCI, I think, meeting with the Chinese community, with Chinese officials in this country concerning imports. Now, the profusion of Chinese businesses pushing out what they call internationally the mom and pop shop, the corner shops, as we know them, didn't happen overnight. I saw 2 years ago, I think over 60 businesses signed a petitioning the government to do something about this problem. You go to places like Mabaruma, and that's far. They will tell you that the Chinese businessmen, they own their own boats, they own their own this, they own that, and so they're able to move goods at minimal cost. When you got to fly in goods, right? You got to use plane or something like that, or use a ferry that takes a very, very long time. All of that is additional cost that comes back to the consumers. There's a lot that we can do. I noticed quite recently as well, I think the government has given a green light for the large importation of chicken. And this is a government that had a by 2025 plan just recently. All of that, nothing has come to fruition with that. It is struggling badly. And again, I'd say this is because we want to lock out the political opposition in this country. The PPP has one of the major problems they have. They believe that they are the repositories of all the ideas in this country, and they are not. It just is not so. WIN got some good ideas too. APNU got some great ideas as well. And part of moving this country forward, I believe strongly, is us letting the best ideas come to the surface and the best ideas work. And it's part of the strength of the United States as well. We had January 6th, I think in 2021, in the United States. People say the current government tried to thwart the will of the people. I leave that to the Americans. But in spite of that, Democrats and Republicans still find a way to work together to advance their country and to keep it as a first world country. We don't do that. One government comes in, we broke down everything from the last government, and we try to do our own thing. We cannot advance as a country with that kind of work ethic, with that kind of governance structure. I think each party brings something to the table, and we have to be able to say, this is a good idea, that is a good idea. The PPP have brought to the table a few good ideas, but together I think we have more good ideas together that can really and truly advance the cause of this country.
Now, in Parliament, your sectors are housing and security. So let's start with housing. And this is what the government said. The government said that between 2020 and 2025, it distributed about 50,000 house lots. And, but this issue, the issue of housing, the backlog in the applications, you have thousands, I think over 70,000 applications.
78, yeah.
78, applications still in the system. What exactly is the issue? Is it an issue of affordability? Is it that we don't have lands available in this country? What are some of the housing issues? And we'll get to corruption. So I want you to deal with, this backlog in applications. You see young people are now, they are ambitious. They want to own their own home. But then, their applications they're lagging in the system. So
it's all the above. everything you've mentioned. We believe that every Guyanese should have a free house lot. And we had also, in the APNU AFC tenure, brought down the age to 18 years of age. The people moved it back to 21. So we believe that more Guyanese should be coming into not only land ownership, but home ownership. We believe
wait, free house lot.
Yeah.
Now, if we have to pay for it, right? And we have 50 allocated according to the PPP at 78,000 applications within the system. And then if you push it back to 18, then where are we finding? How are we dealing with it? How are we tackling it? How realistic? How realistic is your approach?
The land is there. And we know the land is there because these investors, these realtors keep coming into the country, and they get a 400 acres, a 300 acres, and so on. The land is there. What we have to do is we have to have a land audit. And this government is working in silos where that is concerned. We have to have a land audit to know where the lands are available and how could we make them available to the people of this country. So the Ministry of Housing and the Central Housing, Ministry of Housing and the
Land and Survey Commission.
They have got to sit down and they have got to think this thing through. We don't have people in this country for the amount of land that we have. And so that is a problem that can be solved. But the emphasis of this government has been on allocation. For the last 6 years, they've recently changed that after they have seen that the allocation model has failed. This is where you have your big meetings and people come for hours and so on, early in the morning, they're there late at night trying to get an allocation. We were not pursuing, for instance, titling with the same level of efficiency as printing a piece of paper and allocating the piece of land. And while you have, for instance, the government said they would have given out, I think, let's say 20,000 houses in the last 5 years, they would only have given out 3,000 titles. Now, you know, if you don't have a title, you can't go to no financial institution. You got to be building out of pocket. So the system is very, very, very extremely chaotic. They said, by their own numbers, they built 500 homes in the last 5 years. And they've come to Guyanese promising 8,000 this year, 40,000 in the next 5 years. Whenever you improve your capacity, there are so many additional challenges in the housing sector. Take any housing scheme, and you go into it, and you will see the unserviced lots. We believe that every housing scheme should got running water, electricity, good roads, drainage, you name it. Security has to be another important part. Go right in the East Coast, non-parel, new housing scheme, and you'll see the dirt people got to trudge through to get to their house lots, the additional costs they got to pay, trucks to move through those big potholes and so on. No electricity in there. They got to be buying fuel if you're fortunate enough to own a generator, buy security cameras. So the infrastructure is not following what the government is trying to do. We hear a lot about it, but when you go on the ground, you don't see it. And Nonpareil is a nearby place. Go to London and see what's happening. Go to Mabaruma Region 1 and see all these housing projects. I was in Madhya quite recently. All you have is tracts of lands that have been cleared for a number of years and a signboard that says this is a new housing scheme, but you don't see the infrastructure that should be in place that allows the ordinary man to go and to set up shop, as it were. You don't see proper roads, you don't see proper drainage, you don't see power. I was in 5 miles in Bartica quite recently. You have some small houses that are being built there, and even building some 2x4 houses. You got a lot of defects in those homes. It has taken about 6 or 7 years for water to get into 5 miles, even though there was a housing scheme at the back there. There's no power going into 5 miles. And this is multiplied so many times across this country. The model that the government has is a failing model. And until a house lot means running water, it means good roads to get to where you're going. It means good infrastructure. It means proper drainage, and all of these things. We aren't moving the needle, right? And that's just for the common man. It can be done, Svetlana. You know what can be done? Because when I went into Silica City, I saw it. I saw it in Silica City. Silica City, nobody has moved in there as yet. This is the President Pets project up on the highway. Nobody has gone in there as yet. There are roads in there. There's running water. There's electricity. But can you pay for the house? They started about $35 million per home. That's the government selling houses to people for $35 million. You can get everything, right? But you got to pay the cost. So it can be done. But do we have the will? Do we have the political will to do it for the citizenry of this country? That's the challenge that we have.
No, you're here criticizing the government and its housing program, but APNU delivered fewer houses than the PPP did in 5 years.
We did.
Why so?
We did.
Why the solutions you're offering now, why weren't they employed?
Well, I think the most glaring one is the fact that we didn't have this oil money to spend. Svetlana, the housing budget this year is $160 billion. $160 billion. In all of the budgets the APNU government spent over the last 5 years, it did not amount to, I think, more than $1 trillion. We have spent $7 trillion in the last 5 years. We just did not have the money to do everything, right? And so housing was a focus. And we said, not only do we want to give houses, not only do we want to give land, but we want to give housing solution, because again, when people have a piece of land, the other challenge is building. I met a lady just recently, just off where they have the new play park, the Jovera Park, what used to be Jovera Park,
Yeah.
across the bridge. Some folks were squatting there, government was bulldozing them. The lady, in honesty, said, I was offered a piece of land to move. She said the land is $500,000. She said, Mr. Duncan, I have to give back the land because I can't afford it.
So that's the other issue, affordability.
Affordability is the other issue. And that is why we said we have enough land in this country. We have enough money now as an oil producing country. The starting point is a free piece of land for every single Guyanese. We just didn't have it. But the monies that we had without oil monies, go to places, again, like Mabroom and see the roads we put in there. Go to Letim in Region 9, see the infrastructure we put in there. We had a government that says every township must look a certain way. A town has to be the administrative hub of that community in which it is placed. Bartica got a lot of infrastructural development as well. We didn't have oil money, but look to see the little money we had, what we did in several areas across this country, and I'm proud of that.
Now, the issue of corruption, oftentimes you sit and you hear allegations of corruption within the housing sector. You know, persons being asked to pay a bribe to access a plot of land or to receive a plot of land. You know, their applications probably in the system for quite some time. You know, they want to build, they're ambitious, but the system apparently, allegedly, is moving slow, and so they pay a bribe. How frequent or how prevalent is this issue?
I think it's very
And I'm
prevalent.
going to say it's the issue because for those of you who are looking, this is a real issue. Persons are being asked to pay a bribe.
Yeah, and you know, this is not just, as you said, criticism of the government. I heard the Minister of Housing, Colin Cole, just late last year, raise the very issue of persons who allege they've had to pay monies to get lands, allegations of corruption, and he has pledged to tackle that. So there's an acknowledgement that it could exist in the system. Quite recently, as recent as March, the government was talking about it was alerting citizens to a housing scam that was happening. I saw a PPP agent featured on the ministry website. The ministry saying we have no relationship with this woman in, I think it's Agricola. It was she's involved in some housing project in Agricola, selling land. So it's a real problem. It's a real problem. But as I said, as long as you have hiccups in the system, as long as you have these challenges in the system, the single window system is a pain.
Is it? Isn't it meant to accelerate the process, make it easier for persons to have their applications and their house plans and so on processed faster?
Lots of digital systems that are coming on board is meant to alleviate long lines and lots of the bottlenecks and hassle. But you see what the public day events the government is hosting, what is happening there. Lots of people have gone because these concerns remain, and people tell us all the time. People write on the ministry's Facebook page in the comment section all the time. You have this single window system. You tell us it is working. We go to the NDC to pay the compliance or whatever it is. They say we don't know about that. You got to bring in the form, the paper form, and so we're getting nowhere. The government says it is working. When you engage the system is not working for the ordinary Guyanese. And so, as long as you have these bottlenecks, as long as you have long periods in which people have to wait for these allocations, for the title, for the services, the light, the road, and so on, you will have exactly what you have now: people paying to expedite the process. And that is what we want to prevent, right? That is not a fair system, because who got money will have bargain, and the person who don't have, those are the person persons who are going to be left languishing. That is not a fair system.
Now, earlier you referenced to the Omar Malik issue, the Dream View thing. Now, government has, through the Ministry of Housing, enlisted the support of Interpol and the U.S. Federal Bureau of Investigations in an effort to locate Mr. Malik. Now, do you think the government dropped the ball on this issue? Do you think that enough due diligence was done before allowing Mr. Malik to come in and to, access lands and take money from people?
Well, I'll answer this way. I want the Minister of Housing to tell us whether enough due diligence was done. I want to know what Mr. Malik told the government that endeared them to him, that he had the capacity to do this kind of a housing project. Because it seemed to have been problems from day one, if you follow some of the complaints of these persons. And I don't believe this is the only situation where you have somebody who put forward themselves as being able to do this kind of a housing project has dropped the ball. It's just that we haven't had it publicized in the way this issue has been publicized. But again, so many Guyanese are feeling the brunt of this very chaotic system. As I said, I've been to Bartica a couple weeks ago, and this area called 5 Miles. There are some houses that are built there, and all of them are still closed. Persons are telling us not only is that house an allocation of theirs, they've paid for it, but they can't move in because of the numerous defects to these houses. The walls are falling apart. I've been up there, I see vegetable, like a vegetable garden, growing on some of the doors because there's so many defects in this about 50 homes, 75 homes that have already been built. Nobody's been able to move in. That's a contractor problem. And that is replicated so many times. So one contractor, 2, 3 of them might run away. But then so many homes are being built in this defective way. What are we doing to our Guyanese brothers and sisters? So it's a lot. What is interesting is that the Auditor General had said through his office they were putting, let's call them czars of contracts and so on, in every ministry. What has happened to that process to prevent exactly what we see occurring in the Malik case, in all of these defective homes that these contractors are building? What has ever happened to that system? Systems don't work.
Do you think government is holding contractors accountable? Oftentimes we hear about the complaints that you've referenced to, but are people being held accountable?
No, because the Malik case, again, as a reference point, did not happen overnight. The government must have known. Don't only take the housing sector. Look at Gaisuku. The president has been promising to fire and to shift around and to shake up Gaisuku.
Heads will roll.
Heads will roll. For the longest while, nothing happens. It's the same thing happening in the housing sector. They know exactly what is happening. Guyanese are being shortchanged, but they go and they live for the headlines. Oh, we've distributed 3,000 allocations and so on. Nobody can go to the bank. You go and see you're being allocated jungle in some instances. And we have to do better. And one of the things we've been proposing in the housing sector, let us have a national dashboard. Let us see where we are. Let us see which contractors are assigned to which project. Let's see how far along these projects are. When the housing scheme is complete in terms of the physical housing scheme, let us see when water came in relation to when the project was finished. Let's see when electricity came. Let's have a national dashboard, and that is part of the problem we have in this country in seeing the true picture of housing. Svetlana, it's a big issue. I'll end my contribution on this subject matter here. We don't know how many persons in this country go to the bank and get a loan for house. We don't know, for instance, how many persons are turned down. We don't know how many persons are building out of pocket. So you might have an allocation, but it might not start within the 3 months or 6 months that you need to start building based on the agreement of sale that you have with the ministry. So we don't have a true reflection of the system. And that is why, again, we need a national dashboard on housing. And again, institutions aren't talking to each other. In the last budget, I managed to tease out of the Attorney General, the Attorney General is issuing titles I would hazard to say lease. I know for certain titles in housing areas that is the CHMPA are now catching up to. And then you have, again, lands and surveyors on the one side doing their own thing too. Nobody's talking to each other about this resource that we have called land, and it's a non-renewable resource that we have called land, and how it can benefit the citizenry of this country. I did talk about an inventory. Yeah. That's one of the missing aspects too. Now, this national dashboard would have all of that, right? We would know how much land we have and the availability of those land, the development needed for those land, and so we have a true picture of what is the housing sector in this country, and that is a huge missing element. We have a lot of silos, and we don't have a synergy of the housing sector.
Now, with housing, there's also the issue of water, and you reference in part to water, the water sector. And let's talk about that. The government said, as always, it has invested billions of dollars. Now there's greater access to water, but residents continue to complain about the quality of the water they're getting. Why that gap exists between the investment and what people are actually getting?
Again, I believe strongly this is bad management. Here's the president says they have moved from 2020, I think it was 50% access to potable water. I think they said it's now in the 90s range, somewhere there about. Treated water, that is the struggle. We're somewhere about 50%. Now, as you said, billions are being invested. Where is the value for that money spent? That is what we want to know. Where is the value for that money spent? If I'm not mistaken, about $40 billion, I think, in this 2026 budget went to this water sector. What is it doing? I visited a well in Region 3 a couple of weeks ago. The people said the well was built there to cure the problem they have with the rusty water. And rusty water is still coming through the tap. They still have to ration water because 2-3 times per day, water is not coming. Again, we were on a trajectory where the water sector is concerned. It was manned by Dr. Van West Charles and ably manned by Dr. Van West Charles. We were not where we should have been, but we were farther along this process in terms of water distribution. And we have to do so much more. It cannot be about just, like you said, the spending, but it's the quality that we're getting in our pipes. And that is something that is terribly lacking. In Morocco, where I was a couple months ago and going back in a couple days' time, you have garbage dumps that are feeding into reservoirs. They don't have treated water there. The water is being pumped up into their homes, but it's creek water, dumps, seeping, all kinds of stuff into the reservoir there. That is how people are living in this country. As you've recognized, we're spending billions of dollars in this sector. I'm almost certain it's about $40 billion in this water sector, but we're not getting the value for that money spent. And I think a lot of it too has to do, if you think through this whole housing issue, is sequencing. Now, is an easy way to see when an area will get water. Let's say there's a new housing scheme. You just need to look and see what the procurement side is saying. Are they buying pipes? Are they buying certain kinds of fittings? Are they building wells and so on? So you might have a lot of housing schemes that are being built now that ain't gonna get water for 10, 15 years if we continue in the current system. We are not getting value for money spent.
Now, we're almost out of time, but I want to address also the important issue of the security sector. Now, the Guyana Police Force, the stats coming out of the Guyana Police Force indicate that serious crime is on the decline, however, murders on the increase. Somehow, citizens do not necessarily believe the stats being provided by the Guyana Police Force. What is responsible for the disconnect, and how major is this issue of crime and security in this country?
But even if we go by the ministry's number, I think there is still a lot of cause for worry, because not only murders are on the increase, we know in 2025, road deaths eclipse murders. So there's carnage happening on our roadway. So there is still, between the domestic murders that we have and the carnage on our roadways, there is still a lot of insecurity there. Now, the security sector, I think, got somewhere upwards of over $100 billion. The Guyana police force got about $56 billion. Again, nobody's disputing monies aren't being spent. But like the commissioner or dislike him, what has been happening in the Guyana police force? Now, the headlines are there. We see it, and I think that's where you're getting at with disconnect. When you hear this reduction, 25% reduction in serious crime for 2025, and you see what is happening out there, you read the headlines, you know, right? It's been your lived experience in your community, in your neighborhood, across this country. Of course, I believe that they are fudging the numbers. These numbers are fudged, especially around election time. But again, even if we go by their numbers, there's a lot of cause for concern. We're securing our citizens, securing our communities are concerned, because if people don't feel secure, they aren't going to feel confident in wherever they live. We were up on the East Coast quite recently looking at a housing area. And as soon as we step out of the vehicle, the first thing a woman said to us, the Steve body, right? The area has one little cubicle for a police outpost. They tell us the police never come this 10 miles back into this housing area. If you want, you got to go to them. You might got to provide transportation for them and all of that. Where is this money going, and why do we have this large disconnect? But we see everyday robberies. Every single day we see that.
The government is not here to answer, but they've said, you know, you asked where the money is going. The government has said, you know what, we've invested in a technology. We now have more CCTV cameras. We now have police wearing body cam. They probably have more vehicles, resources available to them. So they're using technology to aid in investigation and things like that. Isn't that sufficient?
No, I don't think it is sufficient. But
would at least commend the effort, no?
Through the Security Sector Committee in National Assembly, I think we'll have a better chance.
You're on that committee?
Yes, if they meet Svetlana. If the Prime Minister calls the meeting, because he's the chairman, we'll get a better sense of the minutiae of this entire sector. With those security cameras, I want to see the data in terms of how much of that information being collected is being actually used to solve crime. Right? Who is monitoring that? Where is the information being stored? Then is when we're going to know if we're getting value for the money we spend for those cameras. Those cameras aren't there just to take pictures to, you know.
Well, they're utilizing the e-ticketing thing as well, you know.
But again,
take people to court, fine them.
Again, I want to see the data on it. How many persons have been fined? In what areas? And not only for fining people, that kind of data will enable us to put better road management in place in those hot areas where people are prone to speeding and all of that. But I want to see the data on it. I want to see, for these vehicles that we're buying, what is the response time? Because you know what we get when we go to communities, when we go to the police station, they say, we don't have vehicles. We still hear that. What is the response time? For the 911 call system, I want to see that data too. I want to see what is the response time for answering the phone. How based on persons who call 911, how many persons were responded to? Because there are major challenges with getting an ambulance in this country via the same 911 system. Numbers ring out all the time, not only for that 911 system, but also in government offices. So I would love to drill down in some of the data and see whether all of these billions are being spent meaningfully. I note as well in the security sector, we have purchased a number of body cameras. Yeah. I want to know also what is happening to that data and how much of that data is also being used in crime solving. I've noticed already we're seeing an uptick And when there's a brutal police arrest or something like that, suddenly body cameras are off. And we can't get that data. So I don't know how well the system is being used. A lot of people might be wearing body cameras, but they're not turned on. So that is the kind
selective.
Yes. So that is the kind of data I'm hoping that we can drill down to. Some of the administration of the discipline services, some of the policies governing the discipline services and the police force and whatnot. When this committee meets, I think we have to have a robust output, because we really have a lot of ground to make up for. And then is when, in a sense, we'll get a snapshot of what the sector is saying, but we got to drill down into that. Even the management of the data is a cause for concern.
Mm-hmm. You referenced to the Commissioner of Police. Now, he reached the age of retirement since July 2023. Why do you believe government is holding on to him?
Well,
as the Commissioner of Police, Mr. Hicken, by the way.
He has to be very good.
You think he's performing?
He has to be very good. I don't think it's a matter of whether the Commissioner of Police is performing or not. I would love to examine what has happened under his tenure.
Okay. Well,
that is what, not make him the center,
okay,
but what has happened under his watch of the Guyana Police Force. And I think I could leave that even to the public, because we've had the Brutus issue, we have had the Bascom issue, we have had so many other issues. We had the gentleman from Golden Grove who lost his life. What's his name again? Bacchus. That Kudipindan Bacchus issue. We've had the gentleman from Essequibo, Dartmouth. We've had so many things happening, and then we have also the Shaws of the police force, the senior policeman from Region 1, Hemnat Shaw. We have the Mrs. Caesars of the Guyana Police Force. We have Soku Head, and all of the allegations of misconduct, the training school, and all of the allegations of misconduct at the police training school. We got licensing issues. You talk about bribe and all of that. We have all of that. What has been the tenure? And that will tell us whether we should keep this police commissioner for an additional year or an additional month, or we need to move in another direction. And I think
do you see the Minister of Home Affairs, Minister Onich, doing more to help address these security challenges of the country? We've seen during the first part of our tenure, the term is still young, but a lot of emphasis on tint. Do you think it's misdirected?
Very much so. Very much so. I think you had a lot of issues, and I've outlined a number of them, that the minister could have come and put a lot of emphasis on. And I think the major one is building back the credibility of the Guyana Police Force. The Auditor General told us that you've had $1 billion being siphoned off in all kinds of contracts. The police force, in a number of contracts, I think over 80-something contracts, went outside of the Procurement Act. Could you imagine a police force breaking the law? This is the Auditor General's report of 2024, right? The police force was involved in contract splitting as well. Again, something that is not recommended by the Procurement Act of this country. So you have some major issues in the Guyana Police Force. Of course, the issue concerning the policeman that's now before the courts with how much, 200 charges,
yes,
touches and concerns the police force credit union, right? Huge sums of money is being deposited in the credit union of the Guyana Police Force. So a lot of things that I don't think the Trinidadians would pass musters with the Trinidadians, would pass muster with the Barbadians in terms of if this were their police force. And I think it has to stop somewhere. So there are a lot of issues that could occupy the attention of the Minister of Home Affairs. But then she got her own issues as well. I think our son was involved in a traffic violation, and that has gone quiet, a number of different things. But the Ghana police force needs a lot of work. And I think it needs a more energetic minister. And I think a major portion of the top brass of the Ghana police force has to be looked at. Right.
Now, we're out of time, but it would be remiss of me not to ask about Parliament. Now, the Parliament met after 100 days earlier this month. How optimistic are you that the Parliament would be able to meet regularly and to be able to execute its mandate? And you could offer your closing remarks as well.
Just let me step back a second and qualify what I said about him not sure, for people who might not know.
Yeah,
there's a senior policeman who was sanctioned by the US government,
US as well,
who I think is still on the payroll of the Ghana police force.
Yeah, well, the minister I last asked her about that, and she said, he was placed on administrative leave, and she committed, of course, to providing an update, and that is one of the questions we'll put to her when we see her next. Is he being paid? That was one of the questions posed.
Well, the information we have is that he's still being paid, and then the information that we have as well is that the senior policeman, Mr. Caesar, had his visa revoked, and we haven't had any information concerning the status of that, and all those things require questions. And it touches and concerns Parliament too, that if these committees are not meeting, I'm going in it with an open mind. Even as a person who have served a term before, that the committees can work. I can say for the APNU, I would hazard to say for my other parliamentary colleagues as well, that we are willing to get the work done, to live the mandate of which we were elected, to give oversight and to scrutinize the work of the National Assembly. I believe among the parliamentary opposition, as I said, I think we're going to see a different kind of rhythm moving forward. A shared responsibility in scrutinizing the executive, even with our differences as political party. We are going to be unified in that. I'm optimistic about where it goes, but the committees have to meet. Thus far, it has just been ticking a box on paper to say we have operationalized them. I'll keep an open mind as to when those committee meetings begin, and also be lending myself to the process as well.
MP Duncan, thank you so much. And to our viewers, thank you so much for watching. Now, as we close, we're going to allow you to see some of what MP Duncan saw when he went to Region 9. And he visited earlier, he spoke about his visit to Region 9 and the issues with the trail and it being flooded and so forth. So as we close, take a look. And thanks for watching. Do join us next week, same time, same place. I've been your host, Svetlana Marshall.